The sky was gray that morning. Not the pretty gray of soft clouds, but the heavy gray that makes everything look sad. Cold wind blew through the cemetery, pushing dry leaves across the ground. They made a scratching sound, like tiny claws on stone. Margaret held her husband's arm tightly. Her black dress flapped in the wind. Thomas walked slowly beside her, his fancy shoes crunching on the gravel path. They were old now. Both had white hair and wrinkled faces. But their clothes were expensive. Very expensive. 10 years, Margaret whispered. Her voice shook. 10 years today? Thomas said nothing. His jaw was tight. His eyes stared straight ahead. They walked between rows of graves. Some had flowers. Some had small flags. Some looked forgotten, with moss growing on the stones. Finally, they stopped at one grave near a big oak tree. The stone was shiny and clean. Margaret came here every week to wash it. On the stone were carved these words: Daniel Henderson, beloved son, gone too soon. Margaret knelt down. Her knees hurt, but she didn't care. She placed fresh roses on the grave, yellow ones, Daniel's favorite color. Her hands were shaking. I'm sorry, she whispered to the stone. I'm so sorry we fought. I'm sorry we said those terrible things. I'm sorry you ran away and... She couldn't finish. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Thomas stood like a statue behind her. His face looked like it was made of stone, but his hands were clenched into fists. Inside, his heart was breaking. It broke every single day. The fight had been about something stupid. Thomas couldn't even remember what started it now. Daniel wanted to study art. Thomas said no. Art was foolish, not a real job. Words got louder, angrier. Daniel shouted. Thomas shouted back. If you walk out that door, don't come back. Thomas had yelled. Daniel walked out. That was the last time they saw him. For months they waited. Margaret cooked Daniel's favorite meals, hoping he'd smell them and come home. Thomas drove through the city, searching every street. But Daniel never came back. Then came the phone call from the police. A body found in the river. No identification, but the description matched. By the time they got there, the body was too damaged to see clearly. But the jacket, Daniel's blue jacket with the ripped pocket, they recognized it. They buried him here, under this tree. But they never saw his face one last time. That was the worst part. Not being sure. Not being able to say goodbye properly. We should go, Thomas said quietly. His voice sounded rough, like he had sand in his throat. It's getting cold. Just one more minute, Margaret pleaded. That's when they heard the sound. Wheels. Squeaking wheels on the gravel path. They both turned. A man was coming toward them in a wheelchair. He was dirty, very dirty. His clothes were torn and stained. His hair was long and tangled, hanging over his face. His hands pushing the wheels were rough and scarred. One of his legs was twisted strangely. A beggar. The cemetery sometimes had beggars who knew rich people came to visit graves. Please, Margaret said, reaching for her purse. Here, take some money. Just please leave us alone right now. But the man in the wheelchair didn't stop. He kept coming closer, closer, until he was right in front of them. He was breathing hard. His chest was moving up and down fast, like he'd been rushing to get there. Thomas stepped in front of Margaret. Sir, we'd like to be alone with our... Mother, the beggar said. His voice cracked. Father. Margaret froze. Something about that voice. Something familiar, but impossible. The beggar's hands were shaking. Slowly, very slowly, he reached up and pushed the dirty hair back from his face. Margaret gasped. Her purse fell to the ground. The eyes. Those eyes. Brown with little flecks of green. Eyes she'd looked into 1,000 times. Eyes she'd seen in her dreams every single night for 10 years. No, she breathed. No, it can't be. Mother, the beggar said again. Tears were streaming down his dirty cheeks. Father, it's me. Thomas's face went white. This is some kind of trick. Some cruel. I'm alive, the beggar shouted. His voice echoed to the cemetery, scaring birds from the trees. Aye, Medivh. I'm not dead. I'm here. I'm Daniel. The yellow roses slipped from Margaret's fingers. They fell onto the grave that wasn't supposed to be there, the grave of someone who wasn't dead. Daniel. Margaret's voice was barely a whisper. My Daniel. The man in the wheelchair nodded. He was crying so hard he could barely breathe. Im alive? Nana. I am alive. Margaret's legs went weak. Thomas caught her before she fell. They both stared at this dirty, broken man in the wheelchair, this stranger with familiar eyes. The wind blew harder. Dead leaves swirled around them like a tornado. And in that moment, everything they thought they knew about the last 10 years shattered into a million pieces. Their son was alive. But how? For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The only sound was the wind and the squeaking of the wheelchair as it rocked slightly. Then Margaret broke. She fell to her knees in front of the wheelchair and grabbed Daniel's dirty hands. She pressed him to her face, crying so hard her whole body shook. My baby, she sobbed. My baby boy. You're real. You're here. You're alive. Daniel was crying too. Mana, im sorry. I'm so sorry. Thomas stood frozen. His brain couldn't understand what his eyes were seeing. This couldn't be real. Daniel was dead. They'd buried him. There was a grave. A funeral. How could he be sitting here? Who's in that grave? Thomas finally asked. His voice sounded strange and far away. Daniel wiped his eyes with his dirty sleeve. I don't know. Some other boy. Someone nobody claimed, I guess. The police, they made a mistake. A mistake? Thomas's face turned red. They said it was you. They said. The body was in the water a long time. Daniel said quietly. It was damaged, hard to identify. They found my jacket nearby. I lost it weeks before, gave it to another homeless kid who was cold. He must have been the one who... Margaret made a sound like a wounded animal. All these years we thought you were gone. I know. Daniel's voice broke. I know, and I'm sorry. Thomas finally moved. He stumbled forward and knelt down too, right there on the cold ground in his expensive suit. He stared into Daniel's face, studying every detail. The eyes were Daniel's. The small scar on his chin from falling off his bike when he was 7, still there. The way his left ear stuck out just a tiny bit more than the right. It was him. It was really him. Where have you been? Thomas whispered. 10 years, Daniel. 10 years. Daniel took a shaky breath. After I left, I was so angry. I wanted to prove you wrong. I slept in parks, under bridges. I found odd jobs, washing dishes, sweeping floors. It was hard, but I was too proud to come home. Too stubborn. Like me, Thomas said bitterly. Stubborn like me. I told myself I'd come back when I was successful, Daniel continued. When I could show you I made it without your help. But 6 months after I left, I was crossing the street. A truck ran a red light. Margaret gasped. It hit me, broke my spine, my leg, everything. Daniel looked down at his twisted body in the wheelchair. I woke up in a hospital 3 weeks later. No money, no insurance. They did what they could, but he gestured at his legs. I'll never walk again. The words hung in the air like smoke. After the hospital kicked me out, things got worse. I lived on the streets. Really lived there. I begged for food, slept in doorways. Sometimes shelters would take me in, but not often. Nobody wants a crippled homeless man. Why didn't you call us? Margaret cried. Why didn't you come home? Daniel's face twisted with pain. Because of what Father said. If you walk out that door, don't come back. I couldn't walk anymore. Mama, I couldn't walk. How could I come back? Thomas made a sound like he'd been punched in the stomach. And I was ashamed. Daniel went on. So ashamed. You wanted me to be successful, Father, to be somebody important. Instead, I became this. He slapped his useless legs. A beggar in a wheelchair. How could I face you like this? We wouldn't have cared. Margaret said fiercely. We wouldn't have cared about any of that. We just wanted you. We just wanted our son. I know that now, Daniel said softly. But I didn't know it then. I was young and stupid and proud, just like Father taught me to be. Thomas flinched. I came to the house once, Daniel admitted. About 3 years ago. Late at night, I wheeled myself all the way across town. It took me 5 hours. I sat outside the gate in the dark, looking at the lights in the windows. I could see you both moving around inside. You were there. Margaret breathed. Right there, and we didn't know. I sat there for 2 hours. I almost rang the bell. My hand was on the intercom button. But then I heard you talking through the open window. You were crying, Mama, talking about how much you missed me. And Father, you said you'd give anything to have me back, that you'd trade all your money, everything, just to see me one more time. Tears ran down Thomas's wrinkled cheeks. I wanted to press that button so badly, Daniel said, but I looked down at myself. Dirty, broken, useless. I thought you'd be disappointed, that you'd look at me with pity or disgust. So I left. You fool, Thomas whispered. You beautiful, stupid fool. I came to the cemetery sometimes, too, Daniel said. I'd hide behind trees and watch you visit this grave. I'd see you cry. I'd hear you talk to the stone, saying how sorry you were. And every time I wanted to shout, I'm here, I am alive. But I couldn't. The words wouldn't come. What changed? Margaret asked. What made you speak today? Daniel looked at his grave, and his face went soft. Last night, I slept under a bridge. It was so cold, colder than it's ever been. I was sure I wouldn't wake up. And I realized I might actually die out there. Reality. And you'd never know. You'd keep coming here, crying over the wrong grave, and I'd be dead in the gutter somewhere, and you'd never know the truth. He looked up at his parents with desperate eyes. I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't die without telling you I'm alive, without saying I'm sorry, without, his voice cracked completely, without telling you I love you, that I never stopped loving you, not for one single day. Margaret pulled Daniel into her arms. She didn't care that he was dirty. She didn't care that he smelled bad or that his clothes were rags. She held her son, her living, breathing son, and she cried into his tangled hair. Thomas wrapped his arms around both of them. This big, proud man who never showed emotion was sobbing like a child. I failed you, Thomas choked out. I pushed you away. My pride, my stupid pride destroyed our family. I'm sorry, Daniel. I'm so sorry. I forgive you, Daniel whispered. Papa, I forgive you. Do you forgive me? There's nothing to forgive, Thomas said fiercely. Nothing. You're here. You're alive. That's all that matters. They knelt there together, the three of them, holding each other while the wind blew around them. A family torn apart by anger and pride, finally coming back together. People walking by stared. They saw a rich old couple hugging a dirty beggar in a wheelchair and probably thought it was strange. But they didn't understand. They couldn't understand. This wasn't a rich couple and a beggar. This was a mother, a father, and their son. This was a family finding each other again. Margaret pulled back and looked at Daniel's face. Really looked at it. She touched his cheeks, his forehead, his hair, like she was making sure he was real and not a dream that would disappear. We're taking you home, she said firmly. Right now. Daniel's eyes went wide. But I am dirty. You're our son, Thomas interrupted. His voice was strong now, not shaky anymore. And our son belongs at home. Not out here. Not on the streets. Home. But the wheelchair, Daniel said. The stairs to the house. We'll build a ramp, Thomas said immediately. We'll renovate the whole house if we have to. We'll make it work, Daniel. We'll make everything work. For the first time in 10 years, Daniel smiled. A real smile that reached his eyes. Thomas stood up and brushed off his expensive suit. He didn't care that it was dirty from kneeling on the ground. He looked at the grave, the empty grave with his son's name on it, and his face hardened. We'll remove this, he said. Tomorrow, we'll have it taken away. No, Daniel said quietly. Both parents looked at him in surprise. Leave it, Daniel said, looking at the stone. But change the words. Change them to what? Margaret asked. Daniel thought for a moment. Then he said, Here lies our old mistakes. Here lies pride and anger. Here lies the years we lost. May they rest in peace and never rise again. Thomas stared at his son. When had he become so wise? Today we bury guilt. Thomas said slowly, understanding. Not our child. Exactly, Daniel said. Margaret helped Daniel straighten his torn jacket. She tried to smooth his tangled hair with her fingers. It didn't help much, but she kept trying anyway. A mother's hands, finally able to touch her son again. The car is just down the path, Thomas said. Can your wheelchair make it? I've wheeled through worse, Daniel said. Much worse. Thomas grabbed the handles of the wheelchair. Not anymore. From now on, when you need help, you'll have it. They started moving. Margaret walked beside the wheelchair, holding Daniel's hand tightly, like she was afraid he might vanish if she let go. As they passed other graves, Daniel looked at them. All these years, I thought I was the only one suffering. But everyone here, they all lost someone. They all have pain. Pain shared is pain lessened, Margaret said softly. And joy shared is joy multiplied. That's what family means. They reached the car, a big, shiny black car that probably cost more than most people's houses. Thomas looked at the wheelchair, then at the car, trying to figure out how to make it work. The trunk won't fit it, he muttered. And the back seat. I can leave it, Daniel said. It's old anyway. Broken. No, Thomas said firmly. It's yours. It's part of you now. We'll make it fit. After several tries, they managed to fold the wheelchair and squeeze it into the trunk. Thomas lifted Daniel. His son weighed almost nothing like a bird, and gently placed him in the back seat. Margaret climbed in beside him, still holding his hand. Thomas got in the driver's seat. He looked in the mirror at Daniel's reflection. Their eyes met. Ready to go home? Thomas asked. Daniel's voice was tiny. I am scared. Of what? That this is a dream. That I'll wake up under that bridge again. Margaret squeezed his hand. Feel that? I'm real. This is real. You're coming home, baby. Really coming home. Thomas started the engine. The car purred to life, so different from the cold, silent cemetery. As they drove away, Daniel looked back through the rear window. He could see the grave getting smaller and smaller. His grave. The grave that wasn't his. Goodbye, he whispered to it. Goodbye to the boy who ran away angry. Goodbye to the pride that kept me away. Goodbye to all those lost years. The cemetery disappeared behind trees. The drive home was quiet, but it was a good kind of quiet. Not the heavy, sad quiet from before. This was a quiet of peace, of healing beginning. Margaret couldn't stop looking at Daniel. She memorized every detail of his face, older now, with lines that shouldn't be there yet, but still her son, still her baby. Your room, she said suddenly. I kept it exactly the same. I dusted it every week. Your art supplies are still there. Your drawings on the walls. Everything. You kept it. Daniel's voice cracked. Of course we kept it, Thomas said from the front seat. We never stopped hoping. Even when hope seemed stupid, we kept it anyway. They turned onto their street. Big houses lined both sides, houses with perfect lawns and fancy gates. Daniel remembered this street. He'd grown up here, playing on these sidewalks. The car pulled through the gate of the biggest house on the block. Daniel looked up at it. So many windows. So much space. He'd lived in a mansion while other people slept on streets. The thought made him feel strange. I want to help, he said suddenly. Other people like me. People living on the streets. People in wheelchairs with nowhere to go. Thomas turned off the engine and looked back at his son. Then we'll help them. Together, we'll start a foundation. A shelter. Whatever you want, Daniel. Whatever you need to heal. I don't need much to heal, Daniel said quietly. I just need you. Both of you. Margaret started crying again, but these were happy tears now. Tears of joy, not grief. Thomas came around and opened the back door. He lifted Daniel out carefully, like he was made of glass. Margaret grabbed a wheelchair from the trunk. Together, they moved toward the front door. "The stairs," Daniel started. "Just for today, I'll carry you," Thomas said. "Tomorrow, we start building that ramp. By next week, you'll be able to wheel yourself anywhere you want in this house." "Our house," Margaret corrected. "It's your house too, Daniel. It always was." Thomas carried his son up the steps. Margaret opened the door. The inside smelled like flowers and polish and home. Daniel breathed it in. He'd forgotten what a real home smelled like. They set him down in the living room on the big, soft couch. Margaret rushed to the kitchen to make tea and cook food, all of Daniel's favorites. She wanted to feed him, to fill him up after years of hunger. Thomas sat beside his son on the couch. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. "I was wrong," Thomas said finally, "about art, about success, about everything. You could have been anything, an artist, a teacher, a street musician, and I should have supported you. I'm sorry I didn't." "You were trying to protect me," Daniel said. "You wanted me to have a secure future. I understand that now. But I went about it the wrong way. I pushed instead of guided. I demanded instead of discussed." Thomas's voice got thick. "I lost 10 years with my son because I was too proud to say, 'I love you no matter what you choose.'" "You're saying it now," Daniel pointed out. "That's what matters." Margaret came back with a tray of food, soup, bread, fruit, cookies, enough food for 5 people. She set it down and started trying to feed Daniel, like he was a baby again. "Mama, I can feed myself," Daniel laughed. "I know," she said, "but let me do this. Just for today. Let me take care of you." So he did. He let his mother feed him soup. He let his father tuck a blanket around his legs. He let them fuss and worry and love him. Outside, the sun started to break through the gray clouds. Light streamed to the windows, making everything golden and warm. This family had been broken, shattered into pieces by anger, pride, and misunderstanding. But now, slowly, carefully, they were putting themselves back together. It wouldn't be easy. There would be hard conversations ahead. Therapy, adjustments, learning to be a family again. But they would do it, together, because love, real love, doesn't die. Not even after 10 years. Not even after mistakes and pain and lost time. Love waits. Love endures. Love forgives. And love always finds a way home. Daniel looked at his parents, older now, grayer, but still his parents, and felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. He felt safe. He felt loved. He felt like he belonged. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for not giving up on me." "Never," Margaret said fiercely. "We'll never give up on you. Not ever again." Thomas raised his teacup. To second chances. To forgiveness. To family. They all clinked cups together. Fancy china meeting Daniel's chip mug that Margaret had saved for 10 years. "To coming home," Daniel added. "To coming home," they all said together. And somewhere in a quiet cemetery under an oak tree, an empty grave stood as a reminder, not of death, but of rebirth, not of an ending, but of a new beginning. The wind blew those yellow roses across the stone, and they scattered like hope spreading on the breeze. A family had died in that cemetery, and a family had been born again. Sometimes the people we think we've lost are closer than we imagine. Sometimes forgiveness is the bridge that brings us home. And sometimes love is stronger than pride, pain, or even death itself. If this story touched your heart, please like this video to help others find it. Share it with someone who needs to remember that it's never too late to forgive, to reach out, to come home. And subscribe for more stories that will make you feel, think, and believe in second chances. What would you do if someone you thought was gone forever suddenly came back? Tell us in the comments below. Remember, the people who love you are waiting. Don't let pride keep you away from home.